If you ever buy a house and discover a room that doesn't exist on the blueprint, leave immediately, because Ethan didn't. And 3 weeks later, police were hearing screams coming from inside his walls. The storm had turned violent by the time Ethan arrived at the old house on Ashbury Lane. Rain hammered against the windshield while lightning flashed across the sky every few seconds. The Victorian house stood at the end of the street like it had been waiting for someone. Waiting for him. As Ethan stepped out of the car, his shoes sank slightly into the wet mud. He looked up at the second-floor window. For just a second, he saw a figure standing there, watching him. Then lightning flashed again, and the window was empty. "You still want this place?" The realtor's voice shook slightly. The old man's hands trembled as he held the keys. Ethan laughed nervously. "At this price?" "Absolutely." The realtor didn't smile back. Some houses are cheap for a reason. Something about the way he said it made Ethan uneasy. The front door creaked open. The inside of the house was freezing. Not normal cold. The kind of cold that settles deep inside your chest. The wooden floors groaned beneath every step. Old family portraits hung on the walls, their faces faded by time and moisture. But the strangest thing was the silence. Complete silence. It felt like the house was holding its breath. Listening. Ethan slowly walked upstairs. A long hallway stretched in front of him. Closed doors lined both sides. And at the very end, a thin white door. It looked wrong. Too clean compared to the rest of the house. Like it had been added later. Ethan stopped walking. "What's that room?" The realtor froze instantly. "What room?" "The white door." Several seconds passed in complete silence. Then the realtor slowly turned toward him. The color drained from his face. "There's no door there." Ethan laughed awkwardly. "It's right in front of us." "No," the realtor whispered. "That door doesn't exist." And then, creak. The white door slowly opened by itself. Every light in the hallway flickered violently. Inside the room was complete darkness. Then a child's voice whispered from inside, "You came back." A wave of ice shot through Ethan's body. Because the child didn't say, "You came here." He said, "You came back." 3 days later, Ethan bought the house. Most people would have run, but Ethan wasn't most people anymore. His life had already fallen apart, the divorce, losing his job in Seattle, and the accident. The one his wife never forgave him for. Maybe Ethan wasn't looking for a fresh start. Maybe he was looking for punishment. The first 2 nights were quiet, but on the third night, he suddenly woke up to the sound of footsteps upstairs. Thump, thump, thump. Like a child running barefoot through the hallway, Ethan immediately grabbed a flashlight and went upstairs. The hallway was empty, but muddy footprints covered the floor. Small footprints. A child's footprints. And they led directly to the white door. The door was slightly open now. Ethan slowly walked closer. Then his heart nearly stopped. There was a photograph hanging inside the room. A family photo. Mother, father, child. And standing in the middle of them, Ethan. His hands began shaking. The picture looked at least 30 years old, but the man in it looked exactly like him. Then suddenly, someone whispered behind him, "You're late again." Ethan spun around. Nobody was there. When he turned back toward the photograph, every face had disappeared, except his own. The next morning, Ethan drove straight to the town library. He needed answers. He searched through decades of old newspapers, and what he found made his blood run cold. Every family who had lived in the Ashbury house over the last 40 years had disappeared. No moving trucks, no goodbye messages, no bodies, nothing. But that wasn't the worst part. Ethan appeared in every single photograph connected to the disappearances, sometimes in the background, sometimes in a reflection, sometimes standing far away behind the family, but always there. His hands went numb. That's impossible. The elderly librarian quietly watched him from across the table. Then she asked softly, "You saw the white door, didn't you?" Ethan immediately stood up. "How do you know about that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly slid an old file across the table. Written on the front were the words, "Ashbury House, Survivor." Ethan Harper. Ethan's breathing stopped. He opened the file. Inside was a childhood photograph of him, 8 years old, standing in front of the same house. Pain exploded through his head. Memories came rushing back. Rain, screaming, a white door, and a woman's voice whispering, "You never really left." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., he heard footsteps again, but this time, not one person, dozens. Thump, thump, thump. Like an entire crowd slowly walking upstairs. Ethan opened his bedroom door and nearly collapsed. The hallway was filled with people, silent people, pale faces, empty eyes, all standing perfectly still, facing the white door. Then slowly, every single one of them turned their heads toward Ethan at the exact same time. Fear covered every face. Then together, they whispered, "Close it." The white door suddenly swung all the way open, and Ethan finally saw what was inside. It wasn't a room. It was a long, endless hallway. The walls were covered with deep scratch marks. At the very end stood a woman dressed in white. Long black hair, empty eyes, and a smile that didn't look human. She slowly tilted her head. "You came back, Ethan." The woman slowly raised her hand, and suddenly, Ethan's memories exploded back into his mind. The accident wasn't really an accident. That night, Ethan had been drunk. His wife was screaming at him inside the car. Their unborn baby was with them, and in a moment of rage, Ethan pressed harder on the gas pedal on purpose. Crash, screaming, blood, then silence. Ethan collapsed to his knees. "No, no." The woman smiled softly. "You wanted to forget?" Then she pointed toward the walls. Ethan finally noticed the faces trapped inside them. Hundreds of people, still alive. Every person who had come to the house trying to escape guilt, trying to escape pain. And then he saw his wife, trapped inside the wall. Tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, please." He screamed. The entire house suddenly began shaking violently. Blood started dripping from the walls. The floor beneath Ethan started moving, breathing. The house was breathing. Ethan ran, but the hallway kept stretching longer. Every time he got closer to the exit, the door moved farther away. Then suddenly, a child's voice echoed behind him. "That hallway is lying to you." Ethan turned. The little boy stood at the far end of the corridor. "Who are you?" The child's eyes filled with tears. "I'm you." Ethan froze. "What? You died here when you were 8 years old." The hallway shook violently. The child pointed toward the walls. "This house has been using your memories ever since." Suddenly, everything came back. He had been here before. As a child, he entered the white door and never came back out. The life he remembered afterward, the marriage, the job, the accident, everything, had been created by the house, a fake reality built from guilt and grief. The woman suddenly screamed and charged toward him. "You belong to me." But this time, Ethan didn't run. He grabbed the burning lamp beside him and hurled it directly at her. Fire exploded across the hallway. The house screamed. Not metaphorically, actually screamed. The trapped souls inside the walls began tearing free. The entire house erupted into flames. By sunrise, firefighters found the house completely destroyed. Only one burned body was discovered inside: Ethan Harper. But according to police records, Ethan had actually died 3 weeks earlier. The official explanation made no sense. But the worst part came later. One firefighter claimed that while clearing the basement rubble, they discovered a white door hidden behind the wall, perfectly untouched by the fire. When they opened it, there was only one thing inside: an old family photograph, a smiling family standing together, mother, father, child, and behind them, Ethan stood smiling beside the doorway, like he had always been there. Moral lesson: a person can run from the world, but never from guilt. Some secrets, some mistakes, and some doors should never be opened. Because once they are, they don't let you come back the same person. If they let you come back at all.